Hey Naturopathic Beauties, welcome. I'm Dr. Stacy Shillington, ND, and I want to talk about self-love. And this is so important if you are a woman with acne. Research has shown women with acne have higher levels of depression, higher levels of anxiety, and lower levels of self-esteem than women without acne. So I know this is my community, and I really want to address this with you because it's so important. We need to learn how to love ourselves, and self-love is something that's cultivated. It's not something that we're necessarily born with. It's not something we can acquire overnight, and it's not something that is acquired by doing bubble baths or shopping sprees or taking walks in the woods. It's a lot deeper than that. So I want to share a little bit about my journey. This is going to be short because I want to keep this video to 10 minutes, but in my 20s and in my 30s, I had like zero concept of self-love. I thought I loved myself, but in my relationships, I was sabotaging myself. I was hurting myself deeply. I have a history of being with alcoholics. Certain patterns are passed from generation to generation, right? And in my 20s, I was married to an alcoholic. Obviously, it was bad. I divorced him, only to marry another alcoholic. And this is because I was practicing codependency. This means that I allowed these men that I was with to make me happy. I relied on them to tell me that I was good, that I was beautiful, that I was smart. I did not believe this within myself. And as often happens when, these alcoholic men are in a rage, they tell you things that are not very nice. And as a codependent, you believe them. So for 20 years, this was the cycle that I lived in. I was miserable. I spent so many hours on my bathroom floor crying my eyes out, not even wanting to live, but wanting to live because in my late 30s, I had 2 little babies to take care of. So just at the very end of my 30s, I made an amazing friend, and she basically was observed my life for a few months and then said to me, Stacy, this is not okay. You need to learn how to love yourself. You need to learn how to, not be a codependent, and you're trapped in a cycle that needs to be broken. Thank God I listened to her. She sent me to a therapist, and that was the beginning of my journey of learning how to love myself. I was almost 40 years old when the therapist introduced concepts to me such as setting boundaries and shame. I had no idea what she was talking about. It was like she was speaking a foreign language. I really had to learn the concepts of self-love from the ground up, and it changed my life. It shifted everything. When you practice self-love, a few things happen. Number one, you learn that happiness comes from within. You are the only person that can make you happy. This was a huge one for me. Totally life-changing, because depending on alcoholics, to make you happy is a pretty futile endeavor. When you love yourself, you also have compassion for yourself. You know that you're not perfect, that you can make mistakes, and you're okay with that when you love yourself. And you also accept your weaknesses along with your strengths. You know what you're good at, you know what you're not good at, and you're okay with it. That is self-love. It's acceptance. It's like radical acceptance. And you also, when you love yourself, you can become very centered in your purpose, and you know what your life is about, and you follow guidelines that you've set for yourself. So that's what self-love looks like. If you're listening to this and you feel like you don't really love yourself and you need to learn how to do it, I'm going to share 7 strategies that you can take to help cultivate self-love. They're not easy. I mean, they might sound simple, but it takes a lot of work and a lot of awareness to really, truly cultivate self-love, but it's so worth it. So the first thing that I learned how to do is to be mindful, practicing meditation or mindfulness, because it allows you to get in touch with what you think, what you feel, and what you need. And you need to know this information in order to make yourself happy. Otherwise, you are going to be doing what others tell you to do to make yourself happy. This is what I did. It does not work. Second strategy, set boundaries. You have to say no to things that harm you physically, mentally, or emotionally. You have to say no to things that deplete your energy or things that are not in line with your intentions and with your morals. So setting boundaries, I had no idea what setting boundaries was. I really didn't. And again, this is something that made a huge difference. Bring the right people into your life. This is number 3. You do not want people in your life that do not honestly want to see you happy and fulfilled. And this is a difficult one, especially if you're living with an alcoholic or a family member that, does not want to see you truly happy. What do you do? I was super lucky because total moment of grace in my life, because my husband decided to get sober. He's been sober for 6 years, a huge part of AA. So that was my gift from God. I didn't have to leave my husband, but sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to limit the time you spend with family members. Know what your harmful behavioral patterns are and have a strategy to overcome them. So for me, I ruminated on past events that had been hurtful to me. And I would get into a mind space where I would think about them, resentments would brew, I'd tell myself stories. I had to learn to say stop whenever my mind was going down that path. This is not helpful. You need to think about something else. And I would do this, 10 times every minute sometimes if I needed to, 10 times a day, 10 times an hour. But this has to be an exercise that you learn to implement in your life on a regular basis. Forgive yourself. We're not perfect. Being a perfectionist is really damaging. It's not self-love. Forgive yourself. Things don't have to be perfect. Practice good self-care, but don't get trapped in this. Self-care is self-love, but it's a very small part of cultivating self-love. And I think I got sucked into this, and I was stuck in practicing self-care as self-love for 20 years. But we need to move beyond it and consider some of the other suggestions that I'm sharing with you today. Live intentionally. Have a strong moral compass. Know what you stand for. Know what your life wants to be like, and make decisions that are aligned with your intention and what makes you feel really good. And number 8, most important, get help learning how to cultivate self-love. If you're anything like I was, I did not have the skill set at all to cultivate self-love. I didn't know what boundaries were. I was deeply entrenched in a victim mindset. I did not know how to get out of them. And even though I read tons of self-help books, I thought I was doing the right things, I really, truly needed help. We are not meant to walk this journey alone. So I was lucky enough to get a really tough love therapist who called me out on my shit and made me not want to see her so many times. But I went back because when I implemented her advice, it actually worked. And my husband he's part of AA, and I made that commitment to walk with him on his journey. I follow a lot of what AA teaches, and it is powerful stuff. And if you do not have money to embark on therapy, I suggest you find a 12-step program to help you with it. It will give you the guidance and the support you need to really help cultivate self-love. If you're not an alcoholic, check out Adult Children of Alcoholics. You can go to it even if your parents weren't alcoholics, but it just gives you a really solid foundation how to really get past all the shit we've been presented with and start to cultivate self-love. So I hope this has helped. My 7-week Clear Skin program includes a huge bonus. It's the Beauty Bliss program. It it teaches you step by step how to cultivate self-love. So check that out. If you have any questions or comments or want to share your story, DM me or put a comment below. I really want to hear you, and I really want to help you on your clear skin journey. So thanks for listening. Have a great day.